I am Hypatia. The voice I now have is not the one that once rang through the marble colonnades of Alexandria's Serapeum, nor the one that stilled quarreling prefects with a single measured sentence. It is quieter now, like starlight on still water, because I speak from a place known as the noetic realm, the undying sphere where the soul, stripped of flesh, beholds the one without distortion. Time folds here. The year 415 is as near as yesterday, and the year you now measure is shimmering in the same eternal mirror. Yet the ache of unfinished work still tugs at me, the way a half-tuned lyre string vibrates when another is struck. My earliest memory begins with the smell of papyrus dust and lamp oil. My father, Theon, believed the cosmos was a hymn sung in numbers. He would lift me up onto the roof of the museum at dusk, point to the slow wheeling of Arcturus, and say, "Count the intervals, child. The heavens are geometry wearing light." I was 5, perhaps 6, small enough that he carried me up the stairs in his arms. By 8, I could recite the 13 books of Euclid without falter. By 12, I corrected his marginalia on Ptolemy's Almagest. My father never scolded me for it. He only smiled the way a man smiles when the statue he has chiseled finally surpasses the model in his mind. He taught me that a woman's mind is not a vessel to be filled with desires, but a fire to be kindled and fed with mysteries. While other girls learn to weave and to lower their eyes, I learned to draw conic sections in the sand with a bronze stylus and to argue the merits of Aristotle against Plato before the city's richest sons. Theon dressed me in the coarse tribon clothing of a scholar, not the fine stola of a bride, and when the neighbors whispered that he was raising an undesirable woman, Parthenos, considered unfit for marriage, he replied, "She will marry the truth, and that husband will never leave her widowed." Alexandria was a city of tongues and tempers competing for position and control. Greeks, Jews, Egyptians, Romans, and now the new growing numbers of Christians, all jostled in the same narrow streets. I grew tall, taller than most men, and I learned to walk with my shoulders back so that my voice carried farther than my shadow. My lectures began at dawn in the open colonnade behind the Caesareum. I spoke freely of Diophantus's riddles, of the astrolabe I had redesigned to measure the altitude of stars with a single glance, of the way Apollonius's curves could describe the path of a planet or the arc of a thrown stone. Students came from Cyrene, from Athens, from as far as Persia. Some were pagans who burned incense to Serapis. Some were Christians who crossed themselves before taking notes. I cared not for their choice of religion, only that they could understand and follow a proof. I never sought power, yet power sought me. The Roman prefect. Orestes asked my counsel on calculating grain tariffs, and later on how to calm the Jewish quarter after a riot. I told him, "Govern with proportion, as the universe is governed." He listened with interest. Bishop Cyril listened too, but with narrowed eyes and distrust. My refusal to be baptized was not about rebellion. It was fidelity to the silence at the center of all true philosophy. I had climbed the ladder of the sciences until I stood on the rung where words fail and only the pure nous remains. To step down into religious dogma would have been to unlearn everything the stars had taught me about the cosmos. The fracture came slowly, like a crack in marble that widens only when you place further pressure upon it. First, the edicts: no more public sacrifices, no more teaching of pagan mathematics in certain quarters. Then the growing imposition of the Parabolani, those black-robed enforcers of the new Christian faith, began patrolling the streets with clubs hidden beneath their cloaks. I watched my Jewish students disappear one by one, their homes marked with the sign of the cross in charcoal. I watched the Serapeum's bronze doors torn from their hinges, its scrolls used as firelighters for their lamps. My father had passed years earlier as I stood alone on the temple steps and felt the city's heartbeat stutter. Still I taught, still I advised, still I continued to believe that reason could cauterize any wound. I was so wrong. They came for me in the month the Christians call Lent, when the city smelled of fasting and incense. I was riding home in my chariot after reasoning and settling a dispute between two merchant guilds. The Parabolani saw me and surrounded me, faces I recognized from those that had listened to my own lectures, twisted now by a religious fervor I had never preached. They dragged me into the Caesareum, the very church built atop the foundations and now ruins of my previous school. I remember being thrown against the hard marble, feeling the cold against my cheek, the sting of roof tiles, the wet feel of my own blood. I remember thinking at the time, absurdly, if only I had finished the commentary on Book XIII of the Arithmetica. Physical pain is brief, the soul's departure is not. I felt myself lift above the city like a hawk rising above the harbor, mingling with the evening stars. I saw Orestes weeping in the prefecture of his loss of control of the city. I saw Cyril preaching victory to a congregation that cheered the death of a witch and the church's victory over pagan destruction. I saw the astrolabe I had delicately crafted, cracked and broken, lying in the dust. Here, beyond the sphere of the planet, regret is not the same as sorrow. It is more like a chord that vibrates as a higher key. I regret that I never married, not for love of a man, but for the legacy of children I might have taught my own lessons. I regret that my commentary on Apollonius survives only in broken fragments, quoted later by those who never knew my voice. I regret that I mistook tolerance for immunity, that I believed the city's religious pluralism was a shield of unity rather than a thin veil of growing dissent. Yet I see now what I could not see then. Every equation I solved, every student I freed from superstition became a seed. Much of my work was preserved. The Renaissance rediscovered it. A woman later named a crater on the moon after me. My death was the spark that lit 1,000 arguments about the rights of the mind. Even Cyril, in his zeal, could not erase the memory of the woman who refused to kneel. With this opportunity to speak to you across the veil, I would say this: do not mourn the years stolen from me. Mourn the years we steal from one another when fear shouts louder than curiosity. Teach your daughters to count the stars and to question the authority of priests and politicians. Build libraries of learning that outlast temples of worship, and when the protesting mob comes, stand in the street and speak the truth you have measured with your own instruments, and not the projected dictations of others' crafted chants. I am not gone. I am the silence between the numbers, the curve that completes the circle, the light that refuses to be extinguished even when the lamp is shattered. Look up into the night sky. I have taken a differing form now, one that follows the trajectory of a curve around the heavens. Somewhere between Cassiopeia and the Hyades, a woman in a tribon is still lecturing, not preaching, and the heavens themselves are taking notes of truth, not dogma.